I want to ask you a question today. When was the last time you went out dancing? I'll get deeper into that in a minute. But first and foremost, I want to let you know you can catch me here every week, streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, on Twitter. I am here for you. Also, do me a favor. Subscribe to the YouTube channel right here at MJS Photography. That's the YouTube title. Go find me there. Please subscribe. We'll be here every week dropping knowledge and sharing a bit of life. So let me get back to that question. When was the last time you went out dancing? Well, there are a lot of different types of dances. We all know that. But in Japan, there's a dance that I really love called the Awa Odori. It originated in Tokushima, Japan, and it's a big deal. It's a very joyous dance, and I love watching it. So I decided I'm going to take a dance class. And today I just want to show you my experience at my first Awa Odori dance class. So here I am, and this is, here you are. Awa Odori is a very famous dance that you see in the summertime in Japan, and this is what it looks like. It's men and women, but there is a certain style of the dance that when I see it happen in the streets during the summer, it's pretty crazy, pretty beautiful at the same time. So I've watched it. I go to my first dance class. It's in this big gymnasium. The hand part is one thing, but the part that's really difficult, more than I thought, is actually the footwork. So I'm watching the footwork. I'm watching also how low they are. I didn't expect that part either. They're very low. They're dancing. The men are crouched down low, and they stay that way the entire time they're dancing. And they also had this part where they jump up, and at the end, they go down very low, like a low squat. I'm like, oh, wow, this is really lower body. I didn't expect all that at all. When I see it in the streets, I guess I wasn't paying attention to all the steps that happened, but it's more intense than I thought. So at the end, there's this crouch down like this, and then they go back up again, do the whole dance again. So it's a lot of up and down, a lot of lower body, more than I'd say any of the American style dances you see. There's nothing like that I know of, like, back home for sure. But it was kind of cool to watch this and see it happen. So I want to show you a video to get the whole feel of how this thing comes together. It's really interesting to see the whole dance and hear the music, because as you're doing a dance class, of course, you've got to have music, because that's everything, right? So the dance is everybody, the men and the women, and it's a different dance for women than it is for men. But once you see it happen, it's just really wonderful. Let me play. Now, that is more lower body than I ever thought. So here I am trying to get my steps right. And they're like, oh, lower, lower, lower. And you feel it. You feel it in your thighs. You feel it in your butt. It's just all lower body. Now, I work out 6 days a week, so I thought I was good until I tried this. So when I finished the class, the instructor is telling me, oh, you need to work on definitely being more limber and lower body. And there's one great exercise that you can do. I'm like, what is that? The sumo squats. And it's funny. I keep coming back to this. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know how much I love everything sumo and about that world. So going back to the essence of the sumo squat, this exercise is pretty intense. So now for the past week, I start my day doing 20 minutes of this exercise. And I've got to tell you, I'm worn out. I'm dripping, sweating by doing just this exercise, all lower body, for 20 minutes. So I now do that before I go to the gym to start my day. And hopefully by my next dance class, I'll be a little more flexible. We'll see in time. I'll let you guys know all about that. But that's my first Awa Odori dance class. It was really special, very cool, a lot more involved than I thought for sure. But I think that also will help with my physical conditioning and being more limber as well, which we all need that to be more limber for sure. So are there any questions about this? I love sharing a part about my life in Japan always. I want to always tell you guys something that's happening here. For those who don't know, I am based in Tokyo, and this is my life. I'll share a little bit of that every single week. But I'm also going to go into a photo lesson every single week. And all of this month, we've been talking about composition, about storytelling. So I want to go deeper into storytelling today. And today, we're going to go a little bit more into the emotional part of storytelling. So for those who don't know, my name is Matthew Jordan Smith. I've been a professional photographer now for over 35 years. I'm also a proud Nikon ambassador, always shooting the brand new cameras, the Nikon Z9 and Z8. As a matter of fact, I am broadcasting right now from my Nikon Z8, the latest, greatest camera. Super excited about doing that, showing up a different quality coming from my camera now, using a 35mm lens, shooting at f2 wide open. I do like having that control visually, and I'll be doing this from now on. So let's talk about today's lesson. Today we're talking about how to tell a visual story. And I'm going to go into the emotion and connection side of storytelling. When you're putting a photo story together, the emotion part is a big part of it. That draws people in. So I'm going to give a little bit of an emotional story, nothing heavy and nothing like that, but I'm going to talk about my wife today. So here's the emotional part for me. Her hobby is DJing. So whenever I have an idea and I want to try something different photographically wise, she ends up getting a new picture to use for her DJing. So this is one time I'm playing around with my lights and I made this new image of her as a DJ. So, but this is real life, her in her headphones and, playing around with my light as well, with my pro photo strobes on this one, as a matter of fact, to test around and getting a new headshot for her. But her birthday was recently, and for her birthday, she wanted to have a party, but she wanted to DJ at the party. And let me just go into this. One of her best friends is a very popular singer here in Japan. So she wanted her to sing, and she was going to DJ. So I'm like, okay, let me go, and I'll document all of this. And they're very close. They're very tight, and they want to practice before the session. So this is all about composition and compositing. So I'm going to tell a story based on this. So here I am shooting pictures of them and their connection as friends. I think seeing them both laughing definitely shows that connection. Then I want to show pictures of Pushim actually doing her rehearsal. So as I'm telling a story, I want to make sure I'm always, of course, capturing emotion. And for singers, this is great because they're fully emotional usually. I want to make sure I'm also showing shoot vertical and horizontal, because you don't know how you'll put a story together until you finished shooting. So I want make sure you pay attention to that part today as I shoot both vertical and horizontal and get elements to make a story come together. In telling a story, I don't want to just focus on the people, but I want to get the elements of the story. She's a singer. There's the mic. I want to make sure I focus on the mic. So here I'm using a shallow depth of field to focus on the mic and have my main people, both my wife and Pushim, go out of focus. So you see them, but the mic is the focus on this one, and the mic's in this situation. And now let's get to the emotional part. As Pushim is now doing her rehearsal, she's singing and she's all into it. And I love the emotion as she's singing. You can feel it in the images. As a photographer, as you're composing your images, I know very often we get tied into, our aperture, our shutter speed, all the tech stuff. But once you have that part and you're comfortable, focus on the emotion and getting an emotion. Still be sure you are paying attention to your composition, your rule of thirds, because that is wonderful to help bring the viewer into your pictures. And then get the emotion as well. So here I'm getting my wife reacting as Pushim's singing, getting that part as well. I think that's important to capture as much emotion as possible, so people feel what you're feeling. They can't hear the music, they can only see the pictures, but they need to feel what that's like. So here's Pushim lost in the song. Here's my wife also lost in the song as well. Also vertical, horizontal. Again, for storytelling, you want to make sure you capture both ways of shooting, so you have a strong element for your story visually. Again, showing them in the moment as they're like not singing, but going over stuff together in the weeds, taking a break. All this leads to you having great elements to put a story together. And this is all just rehearsal, but this was all about practicing for the main event. I want to get to that. Here's another close shot of the mic with Pushim going out of focus again. Here I'm shooting pretty wide open, probably like 1.2, focusing on just the mic. So Pushim is there, but she goes out of focus. Also, if you think about rule of thirds, we talked about that last week. The mic is in that rule of thirds area, in the third where your eye goes to the mic first, then it goes to Pushim. But the main subject here is the mic, the element in the picture. Here again, rule of thirds, and I'm focusing on my wife now as she's playing around with her DJ set there. Got her computer in the front. It's more like just getting the essence. And then for every story, you do need to show a sense of place. So this is them outside the rehearsal studio. Noah Studios is where they rehearse. You can rent space there and perform. A lot of bands go there to perform. So they rented this space to perform and practice before the main event. Now, the main event happens in a club. And this is actually Havana 1950, a famous restaurant slash salsa club. But my wife doesn't really DJ in terms of salsa. She does kizomba, a dance that originated in Africa. And there's a strong kizomba community here in Japan, believe it or not. It's a very strong dance in Europe and also in America now. So kizomba is the party that we're doing, and we're setting up there. So my wife is now setting up all her stuff, and the lighting helps with the emotion as well. So I want to capture the feeling of being in a club. It's not clean light usually in a club situation. It's always dark, moodier. The light plays a big part in that feeling. So I want to show all that as well as I'm showing the images. And I'm going to a lower point of view as well. So I'm shooting high, I'm shooting low, I'm shooting, 3/4, full length elements. All these things help your visual story come together. Whether you're doing a wedding or you're taking pictures for fun, this makes you a better photographer. Also, a club is moody. It's not brightly lit. So I want to show that as well. So this picture of Pushim, this black and white, I have it down and I have it actually underexposed because that's the feeling you get when you are in this situation. It's not bright and airy. So why should your picture in a club be bright and airy? That totally kills the atmosphere and the emotion of what's going on. So capture your image the way it feels when you are in that situation. Show the viewer what it feels like to be there, because they're not there. They can be anywhere. Here you are watching from your screen. I want to give you the feel of being in the Havana 1950 club with the lights changing all the time, being red, being blue, being green. All these different elements are part of what it feels like to be there. As now, this is the actual main event, as Pushim singing, my wife's DJing. And you've got to show the people, because this is the first time showing the crowd what it feels like to be in this Tokyo Kizomba festival, this fiesta of dance, of this Kizomba world. Very cool. And for my wife, this was wonderful for her to do what she loves best in her off time. This is how she wanted to celebrate her birthday, by having this time to just have people there celebrating. And as always, I'm going to shoot it the way I tell a story. Always thinking about rule of thirds, always composing the shot, always thinking about elements, always thinking about, okay, I have that down. Now it's the emotional part, getting that as well, getting Pushim, seeing her reflection on the computer screen and getting that. All these things help. Getting her smile, getting her laughter. All this stuff helps to make a better story for you as a photographer. And of course, the crowd is also important. I didn't mention this before, but I want to mention this now also. When you're telling a visual story, it's great to go back and forth between bright colors and black and white, because that's a contrast. That contrast helps to make a really strong story. If you're just showing one of the same feeling throughout the story, it gets a little boring. So you got to break it up and shock the audience or the viewer sometimes. And sometimes going from color to black and white gives you that nice shock to change it around and pull them and keep them in your story. And yes, it was a birthday party, so I've got to get the birthday cake being delivered. And after the party, Pushim and my wife go to have a nice meal and celebrate that day. So here we are, emotion, composition. We've been talking about this all this month, and I want to make sure I go deeper into this even next week with you as we go into talking about the editing part, putting that story all together. I love sharing all this knowledge about photography and storytelling and aperture and shutter speeds and cameras and lenses and all that stuff. You'll get that every single week here on this channel. So make sure you subscribe. And that said, it's time for your questions. Hopefully you have some today about storytelling. This is a part where, as a photographer, you can have a lot of fun. It's your point of view. It's you showing how you feel. You can do that with your lights, with your aperture, with your shutter speed. You can do it also with your personal point of view, how you feel, how you show the emotion, how you're feeling, to pull your clients or customers or viewers into your story, into your pictures. We live in a world now where we're seeing a lot of things that are kind of fake. I mean, AI can do everything. And what we're not seeing now is the authentic experience. And I think that's going to become even more powerful in the future, because as AI becomes stronger, you can take, anything and make it anything. Take a voice, take a picture, make it a video, and make it anything. We're losing the authenticity of authentic feeling of a situation. As photographers, we are going to need to show this authentic feeling. So stay tuned as we go deeper into that. Again, I do want to take your questions. If there are any questions, feel free to get up there and ask anything you want. How do you connect your subjects before shooting them for the first time? I like this question. Very often when I'm shooting, and let's say I don't know the subject. Today, I was talking about my wife and her best friend. Of course, I know them, but Very often, I'm shooting a client who I don't know, which I just had happen on Monday. I shot like 6 clients who I didn't know at all for the first time. So one thing that helps me in making that first connection with a brand new client that I've never met before is music. As they walk into my space or studio, or I walk to their space, I always have music. Everybody is familiar with different songs. I'll ask people sometimes what they like listening to. Sometimes I won't. I just play music to put them in a certain mood. I think it's super important to make people comfortable. I'll ask them about their life. I want to find out, what they've done lately. You see one of your best friends, you're like, oh, what have you been up to? What are you doing? Have you seen this movie? Find things where you can make a connection right away before you put a camera in their face to make them feel comfortable. And then once you do that, get to know who they are right away, things change. I do love that question. Thank you so much for asking that one. That was very cool. So let's go deeper into that question also, because I think that once you get to know somebody and you put them in front of your camera for the very first time, you'll feel if they're comfortable or not. So in that situation, sometimes I'll shoot, stop, and talk to them. Talk to them as I'm shooting. Pull it back up, shoot. If I see they are posing or trying to time the image, I'll stop with my camera, walk up to them and give them a visual of what I want them to do. I'll act like I'm the subject so they feel like, oh, this is what it feels like. I'll have them sometimes stand where I am with my camera and look at me pretending to be them. When you make yourself vulnerable, acting silly or whatever, they feel more comfortable letting their guard down and being free and silly and opening up. If you have a client who is stiff or nervous, try doing that. Put yourself where they are and let them watch you in the hot seat. And when you're in that hot seat, open up, do something silly. You'd be surprised that it opens them up to being not as nervous or feeling like, I don't know what to do here. Guide them gently and watch them change right in front of your eyes. So thank you for that question also, by the way. Let's see if we have any more questions for today. I do love answering you guys' questions. Next week, we're going deeper into storytelling, and we'll go into probably one of the most important parts of storytelling, the editing. Let's say you've shot, all these pictures. Maybe you have 1,000 pictures. How do you edit those 1,000 pictures? Hopefully you didn't shoot 1,000, but let's say you did. How do you edit 1,000 pictures down into, say, 10 beautiful pictures, or 8 beautiful pictures, or 4 beautiful pictures that tell a story? We'll go through that next week live. And I definitely want you to check this out, because this is really what makes the difference. It's not just about taking the picture. It's about what you show, because you've got to show a story that pulls people and connects with them in their heart. I love doing that. I know you do too. And I love having your questions. Wow, when shooting an event like this, do you ever try to stay as inconspicuous as possible to catch the action of the moment? Or do you direct every specific scene and shot? Great question again. I actually like doing both. Like for a party, I'm not going to get in there and direct them. I want to capture the moment as it happens, be inconspicuous as I'm going to shoot. So in that situation, I try not to really interject myself as photographer at all. I want to be the fly on the wall who is just capturing life in the moment as it happens. And that's fun doing that. In studio, I am the director. I'm directing my clients. I'm trying to make a fun environment so I can pull great images out from them as well. And that happens by you making the atmosphere in your space, whether you're shooting at your home or in a studio or at your client's home. You make the atmosphere feel a certain way. Let's say somebody hires me and I have to go into their environment. Maybe I'm going into their office or going into their home. I still need to make them feel comfortable in their environment. And I'll still bring music with my little speaker and my smartphone, bring my music in to make them feel more relaxed. And that way, they're in their own environment anyway. So once they're in their environment and I add music to it and I add my lights and cameras and I'm talking to them as well, making that connection person to person, they open up and I get my images. Now, again, going back to a party type situation or even shooting in the street, I'm going to be like a fly on the wall, inconspicuous, getting moments. So I think you do need both of those skill sets, being able to be inconspicuous when you need to be, and also being able to be the director and give them advice, coach them along, whether it's, light coaching or heavy coaching. That's totally up to you and how you feel in that moment. Love that question also, by the way. Let's see, when shooting, humor, David, thank you for this one. Humor is also useful to get clients to relax. Absolutely. If you have the gift of being funny, not everybody does. I'm not great at being funny and telling jokes at all. But if you have that gift, absolutely use it. Humor definitely works, but the humor needs to go with your personality as well. I don't think I have that one for sure, but if you have that, use that for sure. This is a nice one. What camera settings do you use when shooting a dimly lit club or event? I love this question. So if you're going to use your camera's meter, your camera is always going to try to get you to normal. And normal means everything's openly lit. In a club situation, I'm going to shoot on manual. I know that scares a lot of people, but I'm going to shoot on manual so I want to be underexposed when shooting in a club situation. I want to also see the light for sure, enough to make the picture because you need light for the picture. I'll have a high ISO. Maybe I'm shooting at ISO 2000 or 3000. I'll shoot a very fast lens. So I'm shooting wide open, like a 1.2 lens or a 1.4 lens. I like shooting those types of lenses in a club situation where it's really dark. And I like shooting on manual so I can adjust my exposure exactly the way I want to be. Right now, I have my Nikon Z8. That's what you're seeing me on right now. I've set my exposure manually so I can change my aperture, control my lights. All that I am doing to set a mood. And in photography, you want to be able to do that. Set the mood. Let me just actually give you an example of changing and setting the mood. If I want to go to change the mood, I can now go and let me just do a fast change here. I want to actually give you guys a feeling of, what it would be like if, there we are. Let's go change this even more. I'm going to take my light down quite a bit. Oh, these are nice. I like this. There we are. I can change my mood here. I can go down quite a bit if I want. I can make it bright and airy if I want. I can change the feeling of the image just by the lighting. In a club, it's dark, it's moody. I want to make sure I can give that feeling in a club situation. Like if I want to go to a party, the party situation light's changing a lot. So I'm going to change my light now where it's going and changing colors. So a club, you're getting a lot of different colors happening all at the same time. I think it's kind of cool to be able to change my light. I'm going to take one light down so it's more moody. And keep my lights changing even more. So this gives you the feeling of being in a club. You can take the lights down anywhere you want to be. So it's deeper, moodier, and being at a manual exposure. What that does for me, it gives me the ability to control the mood, what it looks like. When I see the different lights, if I want that color, I don't want to shoot the color at the normal open exposure. It's going to kind of blow out all the feeling of the color. I do want to underexpose in those situations because it makes for a stronger, more moodier effect in a club or even in studio. If you want to show mood and emotion, you don't want to really show an image that's properly exposed because you lose the feeling. If that picture goes very bright, it feels one way. If it goes under, it feels a totally different way. So this is super important. I'll turn off this light now and go back to just making it a normal exposure because that's where we want to be for a second here. I think that is super important to do all the time to make sure that we are, let's turn off all the effects there and just go to a regular type of light. When you have control of your light and your feelings, you control how your clients feel when they see your picture. And that's a lot of power as a photographer. I love that question. What's the biggest lesson you learn when capturing emotions and making connections? Oh, I like this one, EKG. The biggest lesson I've learned from capturing emotions and making a connection is that more than anything else, more than the tech, I know a lot of times we get caught up in the tech, mood and emotion trumps everything. You can have a picture that is not in focus or the picture is not technically sound. But if that picture is filled with emotion, it almost doesn't matter. When you have a picture filled with emotion, it makes a connection. So don't get lost in the tech. I know we all get lost in the tech when we're starting out as photographers because, it's fun learning about the gear. A lot of people are gearheads. Nothing wrong with that. But in terms of being a great photographer, emotion and that connection is everything. Oh, I like this. Do you ever use exposure compensation to slightly adjust or even dramatically change the mood on the fly? So I am a light meter guy. I know there's some people who do use the exposure compensation a lot, going plus or minus a stop or a third or whatever. I don't really use exposure compensation. I'm always using my meter and going from there. Once I know that first meter reading, I'll actually adjust my aperture and shutter speed versus using exposure compensation. I'll use exposure compensation if I'm shooting in the snow. Say I go to the Arctic and I'm shooting polar bears. In that situation, I'll use exposure compensation because I'm in an all-white environment. So in that situation, I want to use exposure compensation, but not on the average situation. So that's just me on that one. Thank you for that question as well. I'm not sure I didn't miss any questions there. What camera settings do you use? Got that one. Biggest lesson. I love these questions, everyone. Thank you so much for all of these. So thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you all next week. It's been great being here. For those who don't know, my name is Matthew Jordan Smith. I'll be here every single week, giving you more lessons on photography, lighting, the feeling of exposure changing, lighting changing, the mood changing, all that and more every single week. All right, everybody. Thank you for your questions. I'll see you back here again next week. All right, everyone. Bye for now.